What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Dream Firm Spotlight. My name is Tyler S. Clark, co-founder of Dream Firms, and we're here to discuss what accounting gurus don't want to tell you. And if you haven't noticed, I certainly have. It seems like accounting gurus is like a game of whack-a-mole in your Facebook DMs, in your LinkedIn DMs, in your all the cold email that you get showered with every day. There's a new teenager trying to sell you a new AI solution, a new way to systemize and scale your business, basically like every single day. And so what I would love for us to talk about is what they're not telling you, whether it's the teenagers or whether it's the established savvy veterans. There's a few things that they are conveniently leaving out of the equation when it comes to asking you for money. But before I do that, I want to actually start with a visual representation of the different opportunities between the gurus out there and what you are working with in terms of the accounting profession. And so I saw this drawn on the board when I was with Alex Hermosi out in Vegas, and it was such a fantastic example. And so he just did this for one, and then he did another one like this. And what these two lines are meant to represent is this is more or less the guru track, okay? So your gurus, they grow like this. They grow very fast, very rapidly, and they plateau. Your accounting firms, they tend to grow very, very slowly, if at all, for a little while, sometimes a long while, depending on who the owner is, the market they're in, the systems that they're using, et cetera, et cetera. And then once they turn the corner, they grow like this. But the nice thing is they don't really plateau as long as they fundamentally know what they're doing. But why do I bring this up? Okay, the reason I bring this up is most gurus, if they have any experience running their firms at all, they tend to either start their coaching business with no experience. In other words, they just skip this whole thing. They're just repurposing knowledge from other professions that they think maybe work for you in accounting. They don't oftentimes even have proof of it. They'd like you to be their test subjects for thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, which is just something to be very careful about. And then on this side, sometimes they have experience, but they usually quit somewhere around here, right? Like they don't ever actually get to this point where they're making lots of money. However, some of them do. You'll have a couple of people out there who are like, I sold my firm for millions. I was working barely at all and I sold my firm. They have a lot of really interesting stories. And sometimes that's what they're selling. They're selling stories of what worked 5, 10 ago. But they're not actually able to sell you what works today because a lot of people, no offense to them, they're not really evolving with the times, okay? So for instance, there are people who will say to you, I built my firm using SEO. Sounds very viable, sounds doable, right? I mean, I'm familiar with SEO. I've heard about it. Other people talk about it. I want to be on the first page of Google. So you have these really logical value propositions. But the key details that they leave out that are very, 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 very important are they were one of the first firms to probably take SEO seriously in 2005. And so they literally had like zero competition. And so they were able to grow very rapidly in that particular strategy. And then they repackage what they went through and what they did. They sell it to you for top dollar, but they know that the odds that you get any results are close to zero, which leaves you feeling jaded and frustrated. So I just want to be clear. There are very good programs, coaches. There are very good things out there. But there are also a lot of overpriced and outdated things out there. And it's oftentimes extremely hard to tell the difference between the two. And so one of the easiest ways that you can be like, it's completely normal to be like, I'd like more help. I'd like more help from someone who's done something in a different way that's more successful than me. Totally normal. I mean, That's the proposition why people work with accountants. They're not very good at it. You have more experience in it. They want to give you money to get you to be better at it. But if the nice thing about accounting is it doesn't really change, Maybe, if someone's trying to apply tax laws from the 1980s, maybe they're probably still in the books, or the tax saving strategies would probably still work. No one ever removes laws in this country. But besides the point, I digress. They're paying you money to help install systems that are proven, timeless, and continue to work, that are critical to running a successful business. The problem with things related to marketing or software or technology is what even worked 5 years ago is questionable today, let alone things that are over 5 years old. So one of the main things you can do to help identify, I won't say fraudulent, but what I will say is again, selling stories, right? The people who are very just story, is you can usually find either really legitimate case studies. You should talk to the people from the case studies. Ideally, you should read the most recent reviews from the programs. A lot of these companies, we'll have people be like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about working with X, Y, and Z. And we're like, oh, that's weird. We've never even heard of those people before. And that's true. It's not just some line. We're like, who are these people? And then they're like, oh, they sent me some email, or I don't know, I got on their list, or I clicked an ad, and I was like, oh, okay, that's. I was like, have you Googled them yet? And it's fascinating to me how many people will talk to them. They're like, no, I didn't think to do that. And I go, oh, well, Google them and then Google us and tell us if you notice a difference. And they're like, oh, whoa, you guys look way more legitimate. And we're like, well, yeah, you're getting ready to work with a marketing company, aren't you? That's what you're looking for. And they're like, yeah, I didn't really think about it like that. And we're like, so which of these looks better? This one. Okay. Well, perception is reality. And you can also validate all of these things in video interviews, in long-form testimonial. You can see these things. And so I just want to emphasize, even the people that claim to be at the top of this, and I'll explain where I was on this before I made my switch and why I made my switch, because I think that's another big aspect of who are the people, and I don't prescribe myself to this title, just to be clear. I don't even use the term coach anymore, but this is the term that a lot of people self-prescribe, which I think is hilarious and ridiculous. But even if they're at the top of this, right? Bottom, top, middle, doesn't make a difference. Question is, why did they leave accounting? Right? What was the driving reason for going away from this business opportunity into a new business opportunity? And there are oftentimes a lot of different answers to this, but you should be very curious about that question, right? You should really want to know the answer to it. And I haven't really talked much about the answer to that for me because most people don't care to ask, but I find it interesting that I think other people should want to know the answer to this question. Why did you even sell out of your firm? What drove you to, because if it was as amazing as an opportunity as you're selling it to me as, right? If it was so awesome, if you were so magically good at printing money with your accounting firm and you just premium pricing, we weren't using hourly, I was working 2 hours every 5 weeks. If that were true, why would you sell that asset? I'm just being brutally honest. Why in the world would you sell it? Why would you go away from it? Why would you not continue to ride this wave upwards? Why would you not do it? And then you hear crickets usually, right? Because the answers are usually weird to that question. Sometimes it's I was bored, I wanted to go be challenged, or I wanted to help other accountants, and I wanted to share my message. But I really think that there's a few answers to this, and I won't put words in other people's mouths, but there's a quote that I've heard that I think is fascinating, which is someone was like, I made millions in real estate, but I made tens of millions teaching people how to get rich in real estate. Now, again, that may be counterproductive to this particular example, but it is true in the sense that a lot of people like the idea of teaching instead of doing. A lot of people may have been good at one particular aspect of running their firm, but honestly, the thing you need, whether it's marketing or growth or technology or fulfillment or hiring, they may have only been good at one of those things. but they're acting like they're good at all of them. They may have just been like the lead accountant, and the other partner was responsible for building the business, and you need business growth support, and you're going to the guy who was responsible for managing the team. No slight to them, incredible skill set, but there is a mismatch of expectations in terms of like, what did they do and what drove them to leave. And so again, I'm not going to put words in other people's mouths here, but in my case, one of the things that's tough when you're a younger entrepreneur is you don't have money. You just don't have money. So you end up partnering with people that are older, more experienced, that do have money and can ultimately cover some salaries for a little while, because we didn't buy a book of business. And that's another angle. Like, a lot of people who are like selling these things, they either inherited the book of business, which you didn't build it, right? Or they bought it. And again, it's like, unless they're teaching you how to buy firms, not a whole lot there. Maybe change management, not a lot there. So you have to get specifics in terms of like, how did they accomplish the things that they want? And are they specific to what you want? So in my case, again, our claim to fame, or the thing that I did, is we added, or me specifically, added 6 figures of new business growth. In other words, cash collected to our firm without buying a book of business. And really, we didn't have any referrals. I mean, if you're a year in business, it's not like you're just getting referrals like crazy. You barely even done any work for anyone. So how are they going to refer you? And so going from 0 to 6 figures is not an easy thing to do. It requires a lot of effort. It requires being relatively decent at sales. It requires being relatively decent at marketing. It requires being relatively decent at pricing. So I say that again because like, that's what I did, and I did it basically 2 years in a row before a catastrophe hit our firm. And it was the type of thing that when you go through it, it's really, really, really difficult to talk about. You trust your mentors, right? You trust people to help you. And when you are in a partnership, it's basically like, unless you have majority, which I did not, you are a glorified employee. You don't really have decision making. Yeah, I mean, you might have some voting rights, and you might be able to slow things down. But if you're young, you're not trying to rock the ship too much. You just want to do your job and do it well. And when the catastrophe struck, our lead accountant passed away suddenly during our basically going into our 3rd tax season. And I don't need to talk to my audience about what happens if you just have someone quit during tax season, let alone the head person of your fulfillment division pass away suddenly during tax season. That is a very tough thing to deal with from a business operation perspective. And so what I wanted to do, because I love running my accounting firm. I love being a part of it. I loved interacting with business owners. I loved it. It was, of all the things I had done up until that point, I was like, I found my home. I like this a lot, and I'm pretty good at it. I was like, he was an EA, and I've got great respect for EAs, but I said, hey, let's hire a CPA. I think it'll make the branding stronger. It'll make the sales process a little bit easier. Not that I really had ever gotten pushback on it, to be totally honest. But I was like, you know what? I really think that this would be great. And the other owner was adamant that we did not need to do that, and was adamant that we had sufficient staff, and and I basically said, I'd like to just cash my chips in. I'd like you to buy me out, because I can't. I know we need more support than this. I know we need a more senior person. I know that. It wasn't like a question mark for me. So my reason for departure was not because I didn't want to keep growing, not because I was just put in a position that was very hard for me to feel like I could have any other impact and could continue to represent the product in a way that made me excited to sell it. And when you lose any sales rep will tell you this, and I would like to imagine I was more than that, and I certainly was. But just from the context of sales, if you lose the belief in what you sell, you can't sell it anymore. And that I had firmly come to that conclusion after a pretty difficult conversation with the other partner. So anyway, the point is you should understand why they left. And you should also understand why they didn't go back. Like, you should also understand, like, if you left, fine, but why didn't you go back? And my answer to this is pretty straightforward. I had always went into my accounting firm with the intentions of proving it as a new, proving internet marketing and the use of social media and generating reviews. I wanted to prove that the old model of SEO with CPA site pollutions was dead, because it was dead. It generated us basically one lead in a year, like, that never showed up. So, like, I was like, this is a waste. I'm tired of cold calling. There's got to be a better way. And so in the second year, we got way more aggressive with trying to figure out what that better way was. That was the whole point. Like, my goal was to use it as a breeding ground for new concepts, strategies, and not use unsuspecting accountants as test dummies for my ideas. I wanted to validate them myself. I wanted to be like, this is what's going to work. And that's what I did. Now, I would have loved to just keep doing that, but I couldn't. And so what ends up happening is I said, well, I don't know technical accounting. I don't have a relationship with an accountant right now that I would like to partner with, because I just gotten burned by a partnership. But I was like, what am I good at? I'm good at marketing and sales, and I'm relatively good at educating people. And so I just made the transition over to what is a different business at the time, but essentially into consulting / system building / agency / working with accounting firm owners to ultimately work with clients to implement the pricing strategies and the different things that we saw success with. But the main difference here is that was many years ago. Even the things that I suggested back then, I look at and I go, well, there's still merit to a lot of the foundational aspects of the sales training, of the lead gen, of the importance of online reviews. The way in which you ask for them, the way in which the market responds to things is different than it was 7+ years ago, or whatever the time frame was. Like, it's different. And so the evolution of processes, like, how do you know whether you should trust one person or another? Okay. So like, this is the easiest litmus test. What have you, as the person at the top of the education ecosystem that I'm getting ready to invest in, right? What are you at the top? When was the last time you invested in your own education with another person? Like, when did you go outside of your current bubble of success and go and find a new thing that is validated to work in potentially a separate industry, bring it back here, test it on yourself or with a select client or two who understands the risk, to bring it back into the larger ecosystem? Like, when was the last time you did that? And what you'll find is the answer is, oh, I browse some YouTube videos occasionally. In other words, they don't even buy what they sell. They don't buy what they sell. And the what ends up happening is you end up buying the things that used to work instead of the newer things that work significantly better. And this isn't saying, like, chase a bunch of shiny objects or find someone who's, like, just ruthlessly obsessed with education, although I think that's usually a very good idea. Because if they're obsessed with education, like, they're usually also obsessed with testing other ideas to find what works the best. So again, would I get back into accounting? Yes, I'm actively working towards that right now. I love what I do. I love my clients, but I also love this visual representation. And so again, I think part of the issue is, like, most people try and just sell you this. But if you work with us, we're very honest with you, where it's like, it takes time to build a pipeline. It takes time to build your reputation. It takes time to be able to earn the trust of premium buyers. Like, yes, you can speed it up, but this part sucks. As someone who lived through this part, and basically, unfortunately, right when it was starting to get really, really good is when tragedy struck. I would have just stayed here if I had the chance. Because again, it's just like, when accounting works well, it is the best business opportunity in the world. I really believe that. But the people who want to sell you the dream of just the top end of that graph, you should be very wary of them. You should be very wary of the people who don't have the experience telling you what it's like to go through the first 6-figure grind. Like, if they can't detail you the stories of the no-shows, of the heartbreak, of the checks that bounce, like, if if they can't talk to you about like the tears that they had in their eyes when they were looking at payroll versus the prices they were getting paid, and what it forced them to do to have tough conversations with existing clients to 4 to 5 to 10x their prices, like I had to do to make payroll one week, then they don't really know what they're talking about. They don't know. They haven't even been in your they haven't walked a moment in your shoes. So look, this topic's obviously, close to my heart. And it's not because I want to discourage competitors. It's because I don't like when people come to us burned from bad experiences that they could have otherwise avoided with just a little bit of extra research, a little bit of like, what's the experience this person has? When did they last actually invest in improving their own skill set related to the thing they're trying to sell me? Like, what are the answers to those questions? And if you can't get good ones, then all of a sudden, I think you should open up your options. You should look at what's out in the market. And as a final parting shot here, if you have been burned by that, and you likely have, if you've been in business for longer than a few years, you've probably made a poor investment, part of life. But one of my favorite expressions is like, don't let the bad thing burn you twice. And don't give the people that you dislike because of the shoddiness of their product or the egregious price that they charge for it, stop you from investing in something that may look and sound a little similar, but is offered by a fundamentally different person with a fundamentally different set of observable results that you can verify for yourself. And the example that I'll leave this with is, imagine the person who swore off bookkeeping because they hired someone off of Fiverr once. And they're like, you know what? We're just simply never going to trust a bookkeeper. You'd be like, you're gonna hold me with 10 years of experience working in your industry, solving the problems that you're gonna hold that experience over there against what this decision now? It doesn't really make sense. But again, the smarter way to go through it is like, well, what led to the bad experience with this? Well, we trusted the first person that reached out to us, or we trusted the first person that just kind of had like a low price or even maybe a high price. We're like, we went with that. We didn't get a lay of the land. And what I want you to do is just make the best purchasing decision you can and trust people that have great track records, have your best interests at heart, are ruthlessly trying to better themselves and their client experience. And those things should come across in a very obvious manner. Like, it should be extremely clear very quickly. And if you do that, all of a sudden you're going to maybe not work with quote unquote self-proclaimed gurus, but you are going to end up working with people who genuinely care about you and can legitimately help you. And that is what I think is in your best interest. So be careful. There's a lot of people selling stories out there. Stories are powerful. I know that. But pay attention to statistics. Pay attention to what's observable. And make sure to go a little bit deeper than the surface answers that you're provided, because depth is what you are fundamentally looking for. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for your most precious resource. Remember, only you can make your dream firm a reality, but we are here to help you every single step of the way. And of course, go Eagles, Super Bowl champions. We are the best. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great one.